5 years ago, I stood in the middle of a celebration that was supposed to be about us, Ethan and me. A night meant to honor the growth of his company, the sacrifices we made together. I had spent weeks helping him plan every detail, smiling through the exhaustion, standing beside him like the wife I vowed to be. But nothing could have prepared me for what came next. He stood there, proud, confident, holding the microphone with the same hands that once held me through my nightmares, and smiled like everything was perfect. Then he called her up, his ex, the woman I was told never to worry about. And in front of everyone he said the words that burned into my bones. "She's the one I've always loved." The room went still, but inside me a war erupted. My breath caught in my throat, my heart split open in silence, and the ground beneath my heels might as well have vanished. He didn't look at me with guilt or hesitation. He looked at me like I was a mistake he'd finally corrected, like I was just a pause in his love story with her. That night I didn't cry in front of anyone. I walked out with a face that betrayed no emotion, but my hands trembled as I packed the years into boxes. Every photo, every apology, every piece of me I gave to a man who was never mine to begin with. I signed those divorce papers in a daze, the pen slicing through not just ink but dignity, promises, and dreams I once believed were mutual. And yet, in that silence after the storm, something inside me began to rise. Not hope, not healing, not right away, but something darker, something sharper. A part of me that no longer begged to be chosen. A part that learned how to disappear from the ashes and rebuild, silently, fiercely, and alone. That was the night he broke me. But it was also the night I was reborn. I walked away with nothing, no money, no apology, not even closure. Just my pride, fragile, barely intact, and the echo of his final words, words that clung to my skin like a curse I couldn't wash off. "You'll never be enough." Those words didn't just haunt me. They chased me through sleepless nights, whispered through mirrors, and screamed in every silence I tried to bury myself in. For a while I believed him. I shrank, disappeared into jobs that paid too little in cities where no one knew my name. I cried quietly in bathrooms, smiled loudly in public, and died a little each time someone asked what happened between us. But rock bottom has a funny way of revealing who you really are. I rose in silence. I studied when the world slept. I learned to speak the language of power. Not with my voice but with my presence. I changed cities, burned bridges, and let parts of me die so something stronger could live. I changed industries, changed my name, cut my hair, grew my mind. Brick by brick, failure by failure, I rebuilt myself. Not into who I used to be but into someone I had never dared to imagine. Then came Nicholas. A man the world only saw in headlines. Ruthless, untouchable, dripping in wealth. But behind closed doors he was a storm I didn't see coming. He didn't ask questions, he read me. He didn't flinch at my scars, he showed me his. He didn't try to fix me, he respected my ruins. We didn't marry for cameras or status. We didn't need to parade it. Our love was quiet, fierce, and private. The kind of power that didn't need to prove itself. We moved through the world like shadows. Unseen by most, underestimated by many. And that was exactly how I wanted it. Until the day the past came crawling back. Loud, ugly, unprepared for the woman I had become. Until that evening. The charity gala shimmered with opulence. Laughter that echoed too perfectly, wine that flowed like lies, and people who wore designer suits as masks, hiding desperation behind well-rehearsed smiles. I moved through the room like air, unseen by some, quietly respected by others. I wore a simple black dress. Not to compete but to remind myself I no longer needed the noise. I wasn't there for attention. I was there for business. For Nicholas. Then I heard it. That voice. A sound I hadn't heard in 5 years. But my body remembered. My heart clenched in protest, and for a breath time reversed, dragging me back to every sleepless night, every insult, every time I looked in the mirror and questioned my worth because of him. I turned slowly and there he was. Still smug. Still dangerous. Still believing he had the power to unmake me. Well, look what the storm dragged in, he said, already laughing like I was a joke. Didn't expect to see you in a place like this. You clean up well for someone who was always so ordinary. He looked me up and down, eyes dragging over my dress, my silence, my self-control. Still shopping clearance racks? He mocked. God, even now, you look like you're trying to impress someone who won't see you. I opened my mouth but he stepped closer, invading the space between us. The same way he used to do when he wanted to shrink me, to remind me who held control. You look tired, he said coldly. Didn't age too well, did you? I guess bitterness wears a woman down. Tell me, still alone? Still chasing scraps? Still dreaming that someone out there could love a woman like you? I tried to walk away, but he grabbed my wrist just tight enough to remind me of how easily he used to do it. He leaned in, his breath hot, his words ice. I told you no one would want you after me. No one. You think anyone could handle your brokenness? You were barely enough for me and I settled. You begged for my attention like a stray dog, and now what? You want to act classy? Look around you. These people, this world, it doesn't belong to you. I pulled away, heart pounding, not in fear but in fury. I could feel eyes on us, murmurs rising around the room, but he wasn't finished. You probably lied just to get invited here, he sneered. Still desperate to matter. Still hoping someone sees you. I bet you're not even married, are you? That lie about being someone's wife? Cute. But no man would ever claim you. You'll die alone, still whispering my name in your dreams. And then he did the unthinkable. He grabbed a glass of wine, red, full, deliberate, and hurled it straight at my face. It hit with a sting, the liquid soaking my dress, my hair trickling down my skin like blood. Gasps exploded around us. Laughter followed from him, twisted and cruel. Still weak, he spat. Still pathetic. You belong to me. You will always belong to me. I stood there, soaked, humiliated, heart thundering, every memory of what he did to me flashing like a montage behind my eyes. The verbal abuse. The nights he disappeared and blamed me for his betrayal. The way he'd tell me to wear makeup because my face was too plain, then call me insecure when I did. The times he told me no one else would want a woman like me. Too emotional, too ambitious, too much. And I almost broke. Almost. But then behind me a shadow stepped forward. Tall, composed, quietly furious. A hand reached out, not to shame me, not to silence me, but to protect. Nicholas. His voice, low and controlled, cut through the tension like a blade. Is this how you treat my wife? The air in the room shifted instantly. Ethan's smirk vanished. Because in that single moment, everything he thought he knew about me collapsed. And what rose in its place was a truth he would never recover from. Then everything stopped. The music, the laughter, the whispers, all of it faded as a new presence cut through the room like a blade. Nicholas. He stepped forward, calm but cold, his expression unreadable, his energy dangerous. He didn't need to shout or shove. The weight of his presence alone forced the air to still. His eyes weren't on Ethan. They were on me. And when he reached me, he didn't ask what happened. He already knew. He pulled out a silk handkerchief slowly, deliberately, and wiped the wine from my face with the kind of tenderness that made my knees weak. His touch was the opposite of everything Ethan ever gave me. Not controlling, not possessive, but careful. Proactive. Devastatingly gentle. Then without a word, Nicholas turned to Ethan, and the softness in his eyes vanished, replaced by something glacial. Is this how you treat my wife? Gasps rippled again. Ethan blinked, stumbling backward, his voice cracking as panic wrapped around his throat. Why, your wife? He stammered, eyes darting between us. Wait, no, that can't, you're her husband? Nicholas didn't answer. He stepped forward and Ethan instinctively stepped back, bumping into the bar table, nearly knocking over a glass. His mask of arrogance shattered in seconds. You're Nicholas Hartman, Ethan breathed, voice trembling. I've been trying to reach your office for weeks. We're scheduled to talk. About the tech partnership deal. I sent you proposals, your team said. Nicholas raised one hand, silencing him instantly. I know who you are, Ethan Moore, he said calmly. You've been chasing my company for a deal you'll never get. No. You never will. Ethan's mouth opened, then closed. Sweat beaded at his temple. Wait, please. This is a misunderstanding. She's lying. She's trying to. Nicholas stepped closer, eyes burning now, voice low and final. She's not trying anything, he said. You did this. You insulted my wife. You touched her. You assaulted her in front of hundreds of witnesses. You think I'd sit across a table from a man who treats any woman like that, let alone mine? Ethan tried to laugh it off, but it came out hollow. Come on, man. You don't mean that. It was just wine. I didn't even know she was yours. I mean, look, I made a mistake. Nicholas's hand shot forward, not to strike but to grab Ethan by the collar. The move was swift, startling, surgical. Nicholas leaned in, his voice a whisper that sliced deeper than any scream. You made a mistake 5 years ago, he said. When you let her go. Everything you lost since then is just karma collecting interest. He shoved Ethan back with one clean push, not violent, but humiliating. Ethan stumbled, crashing into a waiter and sending an entire tray of drinks flying across his expensive suit. The crowd gasped, some quietly clapping behind their champagne flutes. Nicholas turned to the host of the event who had rushed over. This man, he said, pointing at Ethan without even looking back, is to be escorted out. He's no longer welcome at any event my name is tied to. And if I ever see his company's name on any proposal again, I'll blacklist it across the industry. Security arrived quickly. Ethan tried to plead, tried to explain, but no one was listening anymore. His voice had lost all its power. The same man who once told me no one would ever want me was now being dragged out of a room full of people who'd watched him fall. Not just in status but in shame. I stood in silence, trembling not from fear, but from the overwhelming feeling of justice washing over me. Nicholas turned back to me, wrapped his arm gently around my waist and whispered in my ear, "No one hurts my wife," and walks away. And for the first time in years, I knew I had finally been seen, protected, chosen. The gala resumed eventually, but something had shifted, not just in the room but in me. People whispered as Nicholas led me away, his hand firm on the small of my back. Some offered polite smiles, others looked at me with a new kind of curiosity, the kind that said we were wrong about her. But I didn't care about their stares. I had already survived worse. We stepped into a private lounge above the ballroom, away from the crowd, the lights softer, the air quieter. Nicholas poured me a glass of water and knelt in front of me, his fingers brushing my wrist where Ethan had grabbed me. "You okay?" he asked, voice low but fierce. I nodded slowly, but the tears were already forming. Not out of sadness but from the shock of feeling safe. After so many years of learning to protect myself, suddenly, I didn't have to. Nicholas cupped my face and kissed my forehead gently. "You never told me everything he did to you," he whispered. "I didn't want him to have space in our life," I said. "I buried it. I thought it was over." Nicholas held my gaze. "It is over. He just buried himself tonight." But even as he said it, something inside me stirred. A flicker of unease, of unfinished business. And then, almost on cue, his phone buzzed. Nicholas glanced at the screen. His expression darkened. "What is it?" I asked. He hesitated. Then he showed me the message. It was from his head of security. "Sir, we found out something disturbing. Ethan Moore's company didn't just want a deal. They've been digging into your wife's background. Financial records. Employment history. Her old address. They were planning something. You need to see this." My chest tightened. Why would he? I started. But I already knew. Ethan hadn't come to the gala just to gloat. He came with a plan. Nicholas stood, already calling his head of security. "I want everything. Files, emails, phone logs. And I want eyes on Ethan. 24/7. If he even breathes in her direction again, I want to know before he does." I sat there frozen, trying to piece it together. He hadn't believed I could move on. He hadn't accepted that someone else could love me. He hadn't just wanted to humiliate me. He wanted to undo me. Nicholas returned to my side, kneeling again. "He was trying to destroy you quietly. But tonight, when he didn't get the chance, he lost control. He never could stand losing," I whispered. Nicholas nodded. "Then he's about to hate what comes next." Because that night didn't just mark my victory. It marked the beginning of his unraveling. What Ethan didn't know was, Nicholas wasn't just a billionaire. He wasn't just my husband. He was a man who knew how to break people without lifting a hand. And this time, he wasn't going to let Ethan walk away with just shame. He was going to make sure Ethan never rose again. Not in business. Not in power. Not even in memory. And as I looked down at the wine-stained dress clinging to my skin, I realized something else. Maybe Ethan had cursed me once with the words, "You'll never be enough." But now, he was going to spend the rest of his life learning that I had become more than he could ever handle. And this time he would be the one no one remembered with love. Only regret. In the days that followed the gala, silence from Ethan would have been mercy. But what came instead was noise. First it started with whispers. A few business blogs speculating on why Nicholas Hartman, one of the most powerful investors in the tech world, had abruptly blacklisted Ethan Moore's company. Then came the anonymous tip-offs. Screenshots. Emails. Names. Nicholas's team worked fast. Too fast for Ethan to cover his tracks. What they uncovered wasn't just desperation. It was decay. Ethan's empire, the one he flaunted, the one he used to mock me that night, was built on half-truths and buried scandals. Fraudulent patents. Manipulated investors. Bribes paid to keep quiet ex-employees, some of whom had stories far worse than mine. Women who were used, silenced, and discarded. And buried beneath it all was a document no one was supposed to find. A forged signature. My signature. On a business asset we once co-owned during our marriage. An app prototype I helped design. The one he told me failed. The one he claimed was worthless. He had stolen it. Sold it. Profited from it. And removed my name before launching it as his own. When Nicholas placed the evidence before me, I stared at it in silence. Not from shock, but from the painful confirmation that Ethan had been planning my erasure long before our divorce. I should have seen this, I whispered. I should have known. Nicholas knelt beside me again, calm but firm. No, love. He hid it well. But now he's exposed and we're not done. What followed was a storm. Nicholas's legal team filed a claim. Quietly. Ruthlessly. They didn't just sue Ethan for fraud. They went after the intellectual property. The asset he built his current wealth on. And behind the scenes, investors began to pull out one by one as news of the upcoming case reached their ears. But the real twist came when she resurfaced. Amelia. The same ex Ethan once chose over me. The same woman he humiliated me with. The one who stood smiling beside him that night 5 years ago when he threw our marriage away like trash. She showed up at Nicholas's office, uninvited, holding a folder and shaking. I need to speak to your wife, she said quietly. It's about Ethan. And it's time the truth came out. I agreed to meet her, not because I wanted to, but because I needed to understand. And what she told me made my blood run cold. I was never the one he loved, she said. He used me. To get to you. He made me believe he was leaving you for me. But once you were gone, I realized I was just a pawn. He wanted to hurt you, to punish you for being stronger than he was. For not worshipping him the way he demanded. And when you left, he broke me next. She placed the folder on the table and slid it toward me. Bank transfers. Threats. Voice recordings. I was scared before. But after what he did to you at that gala, I couldn't stay silent. Inside that folder was everything we needed to destroy him. Not just legally but publicly. I looked at her, once the woman I envied, now sitting across from me in tears. A piece of me still wanted to hate her. But another part recognized the same bruises in her eyes that I once carried in mine. And just like that I realized, this wasn't just about me anymore. Ethan had built his kingdom on broken women and stolen power. But now, he was about to lose everything. Because what he underestimated most wasn't Nicholas's wealth. It wasn't the lawyers. It wasn't even the evidence. It was me. The woman he once threw away in public. The woman he swore would never rise. And the woman now holding the match to everything he ever built. 3 months later. Superior Court of Manhattan. Ethan Moore versus the woman he underestimated. The courtroom was cold. Not just from the air conditioning but from the weight of what was about to happen inside those 4 walls. Cameras weren't allowed, but the press still circled the building like vultures. Because when a tech CEO gets accused of fraud, assault and intellectual theft by his ex-wife turned billionaire's wife, everyone watches. I sat on the plaintiff's side, calm, dressed in gray, not to look powerful, but to remind myself I didn't need to dress like vengeance. I was vengeance. Nicholas sat beside me, fingers laced with mine under the table, his presence silent but grounding. Across the room sat Ethan, flanked by a legal team that looked confident, on the outside. But even their tailored suits couldn't hide the cracks forming. He looked at me only once. Not with the smirk he used to wear like cologne, but with hollow eyes. He knew. Somewhere deep inside he knew. The court came to order and opening statements were made. Then came the evidence. The app prototype I helped design, screenshots of old emails between us showing my input, my name. Nicholas's lawyers didn't need theatrics. They had cold facts, digital trails, and a paper chain that linked Ethan to the theft of everything I'd built in silence. But the real blow came on the second day, when Amelia walked into the courtroom. Ethan visibly flinched. His lawyer tried to object. Irrelevant witness, Your Honor. The judge barely looked up. She's on the list. Let her speak. And when she did, the room went still. She told the truth. Every calculated lie Ethan fed her. The threats. The payments. The breakdown he pushed her into after he discarded her just like he discarded me. She cried on the stand, not for pity but from years of silence finally being shattered. And when my turn came I didn't shake. I didn't cry. I told the court everything. The humiliation. The whine. The whispered insults that left invisible bruises. The acid he said was worthless. The way he made me question if I was ever enough. I don't want his money, I said, eyes locked on the jury. I want his mask to come off. I want the world to know what he is when the cameras aren't rolling. Ethan's team scrambled. They tried to settle behind closed doors. They offered money. Silence. A weak apology wrapped in PR statements. Nicholas didn't even blink. She doesn't want your money, he said. She wants her name back. And on the final day the judge ruled. Guilty of intellectual property theft. Guilty of assault and defamation. Ordered to pay damages. Stripped of shares. Blacklisted from multiple boards. A non-disclosure clause? Denied. Gag orders? Denied. The truth? Released. And when it was all over, as the courtroom emptied and the verdict echoed down the halls, Ethan sat there, slumped in a suit that didn't fit anymore, surrounded by papers that no longer protected him. I walked past him slowly, heels echoing on marble, and stopped just long enough to say the words I had waited 5 long years to say. You said I'd never be enough. I leaned in, calm, collected, untouchable. But now, you'll never be anything again. And I walked away, not just as the woman he underestimated, but as the woman who ended him. Thanks for watching. Don't forget to like, share, comment, and subscribe for more powerful stories.